5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we are live just like that. Great evening, everybody. This is Dr. Larry White Sr. live from the Dr. Larry White Sr. Show. I'm going to take a few moments to push this out to a few groups. At this time, if you are on West, you can go ahead and go to my page. It's live, and I'm going to share it to some entrepreneurial groups at this time. And they are already ready for you, Mr. Duncan. They are already chiming in. So we're going to share it to a couple business groups here so we can get maximum participation tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. All right. I had to push it out to some of my main groups, but great evening, everybody. Welcome to another great show ahead of you tonight. I'm really blessed to be here for you tonight because you all know I get really excited when I have men of color to interview. And so this is a blessing. Our hearts are very heavy after the George Floyd, you know, we got a conviction. We got 3 guilty convictions, but you know, we still got a long way to go to see where the sentencing goes there. And also, you may have heard that there was another killing of a young black teenager. So it's just tough. So we're gonna take you up, take you down, but I just wanted to let folks know that we are in prayer for Black men, Black women, because we just have it so tough as a race. I would like to just alert you all that I'm still on tour, Deposit Your Dreams into Success. We will be going to Los Angeles very soon. I just left Atlanta, came back to Washington, D.C. to sell these amazing books that we have. The book launch for Volume 2 of Inspired to Achieve, Think, and Grow. That one will come out next month, the ebook and also the paperback. So a lot of great things, Iron Sharpen Irons, Volume 2, Inspired to Achieve, Think, and Grow. Shout out to the Honorable Wesley Webb for writing the preface on that, and half the book, amazing guy. And shout out to Jackie Hollywood Mims, all of the contributing authors. Your hard work is great, and I thank you so much. All right, without further ado, I have a great man that I would like to bring to the stage here, the virtual stage. And I'm just going to read a short piece of his bio before we welcome him to the show. Robert L. Duncan Jr. Robert Duncan has been a member of the Bachelor-Benedict Club of Washington, D.C. for 15 years. Wow, it's a lot, it's a long time. He has spent the last 11 years in the roles of leadership and responsibility. These roles have included president, archivist, chairman of the Centennial Journal Committee, published the BBC Centennial Journal, 100 Years of Brotherhood. That's amazing. Chairman of the Red Sash Ball and Initiation Ball, and member of the Personnel Committee Executive Board for 4 presidents. Absolutely amazing. Robert had the honor of serving the Bachelor-Benedict Club as president in 2017 and 2018. During his terms, he successfully implemented new initiatives such as members-only business casual events, a robust full-featured website, a more meaningful initiation enclave, and updated the Constitution and bylaws for the first time in 30 years. Absolutely amazing. His leadership is responsible for having the club being honored with an exhibit as a part of the new DC History Center's Big Picture exhibit, and the renovated Carnegie Library at Mount Vernon Square, cementing the Bachelor-Benedict Club as an integral part of DC history. He has recently completed 2 terms serving the organization and is the archivist from 2019 to 2020. Without further ado, I would like to go ahead and now bring the man of the hour to the virtual show, the Dr. Larry White Senior Talk Show, Robert L. Duncan. How are you tonight, my brother?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great, as a matter of fact. I wanted to again say to you that I really feel honored to be part of your program. And I want to let you know that all those things you said about me and the Bachelor-Benedict Club are things that were born out of my willingness and my wanting to serve that organization. And it's near and dear to my heart. It has become that.
Well, look, I tell you what, before we get into the professional questions for the Bachelor-Benedict, let's talk a little bit about who you are personally.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about who you are personally, where you born. Tell us a little bit about you personally and professionally.
Sure. I'm a native Washingtonian. I was born in Northwest Washington, lived across the street from Soldiers Home. Okay, if you know that area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I went to high school in DC and came out of high school and was actually recruited out of high school. Had a choice of going away to college or to take this other choice that I had from the Naval Research Laboratory. They recruited me out of high school to be part of an apprentice program there, where I was given a classified clearance, a deferment from Vietnam, and college courses from the University of Maryland. And that was and I finished that program. I finished it near the top of that class, and went on and decided that I wanted to further my education. But when I went to register for school, I went to UDC, and I went there to register, fully intending to register as an engineering student. And when I got there, I was reflected on some of the racism that I confronted when I was at the Naval Research Laboratory. And I made a decision on the spot when I saw this brother who had on a Panama hat, a dashiki, and some Ray-Ban glasses. And I asked, who was that? And they said, well, that's Dave Lanier. He's the head of the advertising design department. I knew I was creative. I knew I could draw. So I said, well, that's what I want to do. And I went ahead and just changed my whole life at that point, and pursued something that I was passionate about. And I studied advertising design, got a degree from UDC, and from that point on, the rest was history. One of my first positions out of school was as an art director at a research and development firm out in Vienna. And I competed with a lot of other people who you would have thought would have been able to beat me out for my professional achievement, but I somehow managed to work my way through it, and I spent 35 years in that career, growing all along the way from being a graphic artist up through being executive vice president at Corporate Visions Incorporated in the K Street corridor downtown, and I did that for 25 years. And developed relationships with a lot of government agencies, PR firms, and other creative and communications companies, associations, and made a pretty nice name for myself, and managed to have a pretty good life as a result of it. And I recently retired. I guess about 6 years ago, I retired, and I found myself with my wife in our empty nest, and we're doing well. I get the chance to play my bass guitar sometimes and work on my Camaro I've got in the garage. I've had it for about 12 years now, old 67 Camaro. That's one of my passions. And,
I have to ask you a question. We have a lot in common. I was a 12-year Navy vet with a top secret clearance and spent a lot of time in IT, but I got to talk to you briefly about the Naval Research Laboratory.
Yes.
Did you happen to know a brother by the name of Walter Blassingame Jr.?
No, I didn't know Walter Blassingame, but did you know of Dr. Carruthers out there?
Absolutely. And let me just say this, my father-in-law, Mr. Walter Blassingame Jr. was the first African-American scientist at the Naval Academy and at David Taylor Naval Research Laboratory. Amen. And so as you was talking, he's my mentor.
Wow.
And I wanted to just let you know that when I heard you talking, I thought about my late father-in-law who who marched with King, and he just had that rich history. So, and then when your trajectory changed in your career path, you know, I feel the same because I've kind of changed and I'm headed in that direction as well. And by the way, Mr. Duncan, you don't look a day over 45. I'm just telling you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. I have a few questions here to ask you from the Bachelor-Benedict, and then I'm going to mix it up with a few of my own questions.
Sure.
But let's start off with this first question. Why did you become a member of Bachelor-Benedict?
Well, I actually became a member, well, as everyone does, you have to be asked, first of all. Now, I know there's probably some guys who ask people to ask them, you know, but I was asked, and it kind of, I'd been to an affair with one of the good friends of my wife's family, and he had invited my wife and I to an affair, and we socialized with them relatively frequently. And then one day he came to me and asked if I wanted to be part of the organization. Now, I had not in my life been drawn to organizations, particularly social organizations like fraternities and whatnot. But I thought that this was a time in my life where maybe I should do something different. I've done it that way for a number of years, for most of my life. Maybe it's time to do some things that I wouldn't normally do. And so I accepted it. But then also the other part of it was, it also gave me somewhere nice to take my wife 4 or 5 times a year. And so those were the compelling factors. Once I got in, then I started falling in love with the whole organizational aspect of it. And I kind of knew that I was at home in that regard, because I dealt with organizational stuff and interactions with people on a regular basis. I made my money doing that. I was a people person, they called me, you know. And so once I was in, that was it. And I got drawn into the Centennial that was coming along. Roy Priest was heading I think at the time, the Centennial Committee, and he reached out to me. He kind of knew what some of my skills were. And he asked if I would mind working with him on what he called at the time, the Souvenir Journal for our event. And so I said, well, you know, what the heck, you know, and the rest is history. And he and Paul Sluby, who was the archivist then, the late Paul Sluby, the late great Paul Sluby, worked together and tirelessly put together a document that's copyrighted. It's actually, and it chronicles very well the history of the organization. I can
tell you, Mr. Duncan, this is absolutely amazing. Before we go on with a few questions, let's get a few shout outs. Let's say hello to R.M. Wilson Esquire, welcome. Roy Priest, Sharon Duncan. Hey, Sharon, must be a family member.
That's my wife.
Amen, amen. B. Ewing, hello, how you doing? Eric Washington. I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to the entire mastermind group. Jackie Mims, Lisa Harwell, the Honorable, I call him the Honorable R. Wesley Webb, for several reasons. Such an amazing man of character, Wes, because just to introduce me to you tonight, I'm all excited to learn more. So some of these questions we're going to ask you are going to give us more insight to your organization, because you're really decorated. I can't wait to tell my wife about your background, because it's very similar to her dad at the Naval Research Laboratory.
Right.
So just shout out to Miss Brooks. I know you out there in Houston, Texas. We have a whole lot of people from around the country. I can't shout all of you all out, but I want to thank particularly the Sims family, Signature Entrepreneurs and Masterminds. Thank you so much for sharing the broadcast. We got this amazing man of God, this amazing visionary that is, wow, I would say before your time, for all the things that you've done. And the fact is that you can still enjoy retirement, beautiful wife, empty nester, play that bass guitar and ride around in that car.
All right, there you.
Hey man, let's ask you a few more questions that I'm really intrigued, because I'm an event guy. What are the events contained in the physical annual social calendar for Bachelor-Benedict Club?
Okay, and it's been the same for quite a while. Generally, we have the year starts out with our initiation ball. And now I'm going to come back over all of this, because I want to tell you some of the things that we've tried in the last few years that may become changes in the way we've normally done it. Our initiation ball is the first formal of the year, and that's when we bring in our new members. So before that time, the membership has the opportunity to reach out to brothers to become part of our organization. Normally, they would have brought these brothers to an event during the previous year, so they have some idea of what the heck we are and what we do. And so that's the first event, is our initiation ball, kind of an enclave that we have for our new members. The next event on the our normal calendar would be our summer, not the summer outing, the spring outing. We have, these are slots on the calendar, and they've changed over the last few years because of COVID and whatnot. But we would have a summer outing that would, it started being a casual, I'm sorry, spring outing. It's a casual outing to the racetrack or to a casino. And it was generally at the time we were doing them, they were bus trips that we would take out to these different places. We've had spring outings that have gone all the way to Vegas, and that was some time ago. So that's some of the history of the organization. That particular spot on the calendar has evolved to be different things. The next spot on the calendar would be the summer outing, and that was normally another casual event, and it would be generally an outdoor picnic or an indoor picnic or some other type of casual affair. Last year, when I say some other type, last year we had a virtual summer outing. The year before that, we tried a white affair, which was an indoor picnic. The year before that, we did an outdoor picnic at there's a place up in beyond Gaithersburg where they have these wonderful outdoor picnics where they barbecue all the food for you. You bring your groups in and have a wonderful time outdoors. We did that for about 3 years. We've had that summer outing be a crab feast. So there's any number of things that we can do in these slots that we have. So the next one after the summer outing would be would normally have been the golf outing. We would have a golf outing in the fall. As what happened though is that the foundation, our nonprofit arm, which I hope to talk about at some point, actually took on the golf outing. So it's now a fundraiser for our foundation. That came in an agreement that we made with the club to take that event on. And then the next event following that would be our big fall dinner dance. And that's our main formal event of the year. And that's the event where we would have, we've had as many as 1,200 people at that event. It was used, that spot on the calendar was used for our centennial celebration as well, which it was just an amazing affair. That fall event is the highlight of our year. And it's usually the event that we encourage our members to bring their friends to as guests, because that's the one that they're going to remember and want to come back to. The last event would be our annual meeting, and that's a members only meeting where we take care of the business of the club for the final time during the year. And that usually comes in November, and then we start our calendar year over again.
You know, being an event guy, I have a company called VIP Events Concierge where we focus on events. And so I'm over here just licking my chops of the annual stuff that you have. You know, my wife is a Delta, and you know, I remember her inviting me to their crab feast, and I've done my own all white parties, and it's I can't wait to things are starting to open back up, and I can definitely see some collaborations here. I can see why Wes has wanted me to interview you because of all this great things. Because I love events. I love events. It kind of slowed me down. We did have to pivot, as we all have had to do in a virtual environment. And that's why these Zooms are great. It kind of forced us to get out of the norm to be able to still do things. Nothing like being in person, but we had to do what we had to do, and we're getting better. I'm fully vaccinated, so I feel a little bit more comfortable going out, but we're still not out of the woods yet. But this is some amazing stuff, so I'll have to make sure that I get on that calendar and check out some of your things, because I can help promote things as well. Really like that about it. All right, next question. Name some of the notable members of the club throughout its history.
Okay, I thought about that. I thought you may want to hear that. So I unfortunately had to make a list. So I can't do this extemporaneously, okay? So So what I did was I sat down and I thought of, I guess it's kind of hard to do this because they're spread out over this time. And I was trying to think of some kind of order to have them in. So what I chose was maybe an order of like I grouped all the judges together, for example. That's where I started. And so we've got a Judge Armand Scott, Judge William Turk Thompson, Judge Wilhelmine Quander, Judge Earl Shamwell, Judge James A. Cobb. And right under that, I don't know why, I have Senator Edwin Brooks. Okay, he was the senator from Massachusetts. Okay, there was Raymond Ware, was the chief of NSA. He was the polygraph pioneer. George Edward Chalmers Hayes. It was an attorney who worked with the Cobb, Howard and Cage law firm. And I'm sorry, Hayes law firm worked with Frank Reeves on the Brown versus Education work.
Excuse me one second, Mr. Duncan. I'm going to mute everybody, and then I want you to unmute yourself. I got a little bit of background noise, so I'm going to mute everybody, okay, and then unmute yourself, Mr. Duncan.
Okay.
1999. Hello, Gayla. Hello.
Okay. Is that good?
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. So, and then we've got military brass. Okay. The names like Cunningham, General Cunningham Bryan, General Arthur Holmes. We've got a couple more generals in that group. I didn't know their names, but I know of them. There was a Hawkins, a General Hawkins, and there was another one that I didn't write that one down. But also in the military, we've got two Tuskegee Airmen. There was Captain Hayden C. Johnson was a Tuskegee Airman, and we recently lost our great Tuskegee Airman Walter K. Robinson, who passed away on his 100th birthday last November. And he was some of the lifeblood of our organization. Walter Robinson was former president, and he knew everything about the club. And in fact, we drew on him heavily when we did the exhibit at the History Center downtown. When I was working with Jane Levy there, we put together some sessions that Walter hosted at his home, where we had some of the older honorary guys who had all of these memories, and she was there, but they were recording all this stuff. And we had meetings with debutantes and whatnot to kind of recap their part in what our organization was over the years. So Walter Robinson was very key in making that happen. He's listed on the list of participators, contributors on the list of folks from the club that contributed to the Big Picture exhibit down there. And by the way, the Big Picture exhibit is still going. It was supposed to go for 2 years. It went for 2. And I think COVID has them extending it for a couple more years. So that's something you've got to see. And I'll come back to that at some point, possibly, and to explain what it is. But we have Frank D. Reeves. Now, have you heard of the new project with the Frank Reeves building downtown?
I have not.
Okay, that's kind of new news and hasn't really come out in general. They're going to renovate that whole building and have a lot of stuff there in his honor in that building. Of course, you know, he was a pioneer in the whole civil rights movement, an attorney, and he's very renowned in the organization and in Washington, D.C. Addison Scurlock. He's the great photographer. We have a lot of Scurlock photography in our archive. And those are guys. I thought what I would do tonight is I would mention one lady who particularly had her hands involved in the Bachelor-Benedict Club for 30 years, and that's Thurell Smith. She was the dancer and choreographer who worked with all the debutantes from 1940 up through 1970 of the Bachelor-Benedict Club. And every one of those, she choreographed those events. She taught all the ladies and the escorts how to waltz, And she was a big part of our organization during that time. And of course, you know, debutantes, we no longer do debutante cotillions, and it happened during a time when people started, I guess, getting woke, because because I think that folks didn't. It was during the era. It was 1970. Okay, so you know what's happening in 1970. There was a whole lot of the civil rights movement, the Black Power, and whatnot, and we became Black, at that time. And I think that if you go by the numbers, you'll see that in 1940 we started out with about 20 debutantes. In 1948 we had 135, and by 1970 we were down to 19 again. So it came and it went. There's some calling for us to bring it back. The exhibit at the New History Center, the DC History Center, is a 40-foot wide by 10-foot tall photograph, panoramic photograph of our 1948 debutante ball at the Uline Arena. And that's really an impressive piece. We also, on loan, we've got a Bachelor-Benedict tuxedo there with our red ribbon sash.
I saw the sash when I did the flyer, and I just got to tell you how impressive it is to hear you acknowledge your members. No one can do it alone, and that's probably the biggest thing about our group, is that I love to honor the work that people. This is so great that you're naming all these people, because so many people don't want their name mentioned because they just like to do the work and stay behind the scenes. Gotcha. But it's good that you're giving the acknowledgments to them.
It takes a village and everything. We nobody can do it by themselves. And I think one of the reasons we've been around as long as we have is because we recognize that, and and there's a group effort to in terms of the leadership and the direction of the club. It's a lot of hard work, and
I can tell. And you've been managing it and took on that baton and keep it going and keep that legacy going. Before we go to the next question, I do want to ask you, were you able to acknowledge all of your members that you wanted to acknowledge?
Thank you. I did. I think I got them all. The last one was Thurl Smith. I wanted to make sure that I got the lady in there who has been involved with our club for all those years.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next question. We got a couple more, and then I got a few that I'm going to add in here, get you out of here, but a couple more. Okay. As an archivist, what do you consider to be the most interesting part of the 100 years of the Bachelor-Benedict Club?
And we've already talked about it, and that's the debutante cotillions, in my view. And one of the reasons that it stands out is because there were a lot of norms and I guess stereotypes of African Americans during that period from 1940 to 1970. And the debutante cotillions broke the mold. They were our message to the dominant culture in our country that, hey, we can do this too. We have people and members in our organization who understand what it is to be accomplished, what it is to be successful, what it is to be esteemed and accomplished men and ladies, insofar as the debutantes. And so I think that was very huge. I was at the exhibit at the History Center, and there's a white guy who was just totally amazed. He had never seen anything like that. And looking at the year, it was like in 48, he just couldn't understand. The guy actually cried. White middle-aged guy. He started talking to me, and it just started coming out. It was amazing, the impact that was had by the debutante cotillions. Our cotillion integrated the Willard Hotel for events, because they didn't have anything like that with African Americans ever. We were constantly in the newspapers, the Star, not just the Afro-American and the Jet. We were in those documents as well, but we were in the main newspapers of Washington, D.C. They had there's some spreads in the Washington Star where they were actually photographs of the debutante and her date getting ready to go out. So this was all a part of it. of a kind of a cultural, I don't even know what you call it, but at any rate, so that's to me was the most, I think, the most meaningful part of that period of time. And there are probably some others I could think of, but that one stands out to me.
Okay, that's good. Just a couple more, and then we got some things I'm going to ask you here
Sure.
a little bit. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges that the club faces moving forward?
I think it's getting our, is maintaining our membership, keeping it at a level that where it can be as impactful as it was when we had a Red Sash ball with 1,000 people in it. You know, and so keeping our membership up. Another challenge is to, in my view, and it's kind of split on this, I think, is the engagement of the women in our organization, the spouses and significant others, the widows of some of the past presidents and members of our organization. So try to get them engaged in some way. And it's going to take an effort because we've got to do an outreach, and then we've got to get them to be interested. And so, and then also, I think that there's a role for the wives of current members where they can actually, if there was a women's auxiliary of the Bachelor-Benedict Club, I wouldn't be mad, you know, but I can't start it, you know, so it's they've got to do it, you know, but I think that could actually be of some benefit to the organization to get the ladies involved, you know, and you know, the ladies, they're different than we are.
Yes. You know, you brought up a good point. Before leaving the 100 Black Men, where Wes and I were together, I was the membership chair, and you know, it was tough trying to keep men engaged, pay dues and things of that nature, staying financial. But for about a year or two, I was membership chair. I wanted to make sure we grew the organization, and having these events that's really helpful. And I used to break it down to all the members, and I just want to shout out all the folks that are still with us. We're almost done. But most folks join organizations, what I call BSS and SSS, Brotherhood, Scholastic, and Service. All right, you're going to hang out with the brothers, do the brotherhood thing. Right. You're going to roll your sleeves up, do some service, or you're going to do the scholastic piece as far as education and programs and things of that nature. And it gives me a gauge to see, you know, where members fit in. You know, some brothers want to show up for the happy hour, but they go pay their dues, but they won't really do much work. And I look at that as I'm chairman, national chairman of the Signature Entrepreneurs and Masterminds. Just recruited 2 new members out of South Carolina today, and we're growing. And you hit the nail on the head, where you're trying to keep members, and especially now during the COVID-19, where people may not feel comfortable coming in these mass events. So I'm there with you, and this is great because I thought I was the only one going through some of those challenges when you had an organization or group. So that's pretty good. One more question for you from what I got from your team, and then I got a couple more of my own. Okay. How did the Bachelor-Benedict Community Foundation come to be, and what's its purpose?
Okay. So there was, after the debutante era, the 1970, there was no community outreach from the Bachelor-Benedict Club to 2018, okay? And it became a sore spot for members, some members. There were other members, you talked about it a little while ago, there were other members who all they wanted to do is come to the events. And that's fine, because I mean, we're known for our events. So if that's what they want to do, that's fine. They probably have their own charitable efforts that they do outside of the club, and that's fine. But it got to the point where we were asking and polling members who left the club, you know, well, what were some of the reasons why you left the Bachelor-Benedict Club? You've been here for a number of years. There was a former baseball player, I can't think of his name right now, professional baseball player who left. And he said, well, the club isn't about anything. You know, it's about, all it is about social affairs. You know, I do that on my own. And so, and we heard that enough to where there was a call for us from some level for us to find a way to have a charitable arm of the club. And there was some challenges there with the tax status of the club. So we couldn't just change it to a 501c3. So I worked with Paul Salubi and I and some other folks, kind of got our heads together and found that the path was to create a new entity. And that's what we did. We did that in 2018. We incorporated as the Bachelor-Benedict Community Foundation. And that was my last year as president. And that was something that when I left the office of president in that year, I was very pleased that had come to be. And that the club saw, and that's all the members of the club, we voted on this. I give them credit as well, as it wasn't just me, it was the club wanted this. The club wanted there to be some type of community outreach from the organization that they were involved in. And so getting to the other part of your question, the purpose of the foundation is to provide scholarships to youth from under-resourced Washington metro area communities, and to provide financial support for other organizations who have youth as their beneficiaries. So, and then there's this catch-all phrase that in our founding documents that say that we can do any charitable work that we so choose. And so we use that as the basis of us last year to, we couldn't ignore COVID at all. And it wasn't, you know, and so what we did is we reached out to the Washington Capital Area Food Bank and gave them enough support to provide 2,500 meals for communities, for the communities that were under-resourced and where people were actually not getting enough food, you know, so we couldn't ignore that. So we did that, and then we just started, and we're finishing up our scholarship for our 2021 graduates. And we just did an outreach on that, and we've got, I guess, about 8 or 9 applications in for our scholarships. So that's the purpose of the Bachelor-Benedict Community Foundation. We want to make a difference in our community, in the Washington metro area.
I got to tell you, Mr. Duncan, I have gotten a nice tutorial. Came in knowing little to nothing about the organization, and I'm leaving here with a lot. I didn't realize this organization existed until the R. Wesley Webb, the Honorable, brought it to my attention, and I'm intrigued. I'm like, how do we get involved? I like things like this. You said something, remind me of myself earlier. You know, I'm not too big on joining organizations, but then I got involved to do the same thing, whether to help the inner youth around the country, here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, backpack drives, Black History programs, scholarships. This is like music to my ears. And I just want to, for all of the folks that are listening from your organization, you have an amazing leader here. This is great. For the folks that are listening on social media, thank you so much for chiming in, because I think this is the most important question to ask you tonight.
Oh.
I cannot let you get away with this one. And it's very easy. Some of these other ones, that was pretty tough, and you went through them really nice. How can we contact you and get, you know, if somebody want to go to your website, what's your website? How can they contact you if you are looking for new members? Are you all looking for new members?
All the time. I would think that the membership is looking for new members. I'm certainly, from where I sit, yes, is the answer to that question. And I'm going to make it real simple for you. I was talking to a buddy of mine who I'm having work on our Bachelor-Benedict Community Foundation website. And so what he's done is he said, well, let me do this for you, Rob, since you're going to have this thing going on. So he put our latest email marketing piece out there for anybody to go to with the URL www.redsash.net.
I have that as www.redsash.net.
That's it.
I think I got that right there.
All right.
Redsash.net. And I got to tell you, I know Wes is going to more like call me afterwards, because there's definitely some synergy between the my organization and, you know, we're looking at now. I've got a meeting tomorrow to turn a portion of my business into a nonprofit. So when you talked about that, it's like, wow, you're like my big brother, my mentor. I'm following in your footsteps. And you know, when I look at some stuff that was crossing the line, where some of the for-profit stuff was needing to be over here, and the nonprofit needed to go under a nonprofit umbrella, I definitely got that. And much like yourself, you know, we do a lot of social events, but we also do a lot of workshops so we can teach people how to sustain business initiatives, LLC, LLP. There's a big difference between those two when you incorporate LLC, LLP from a tax standpoint, C Corp and S Corp. But I say keep going, because you even though you're doing the hustle and bustle every day, we still need to have a good time as well, you know. And I always tell people, if you're paying dues, what's your return on your investment on your dues? Are you going to be able to go to some events, have some dinners? Because I love networking. I got a book over here called The Ultimate Networker and Entrepreneur, and I love getting out, meeting people, and especially our people that are doing well. So I will tell you, I want to congratulate you and your team for doing an amazing job. One last question. I'll have you repeat the website one more time, but one last question. We're coming out of a pandemic, but there's a lot of variances going on, mutations, so we're not out of the woods yet. What encouraging advice would you give someone that's listening right now if they wanted to start an organization like you have been a part of, but something is stopping them? The pandemic they were struggling before the pandemic, and now after it, they may not come out better on the other side. But what encouraging advice would you give our listening audience tonight to continue to pursue starting their initiatives, joining a great organization if there's something holding them back?
Just remove the idea of limitation and circumstance from your mindset, and know that whatever it is you wish to achieve, you can. And if you can stay with that kind of positive thinking, and you start, it's amazing what happens when you set an intention. Sometimes it just seems to move in the direction of what you intended. And the thing that holds us back most of all are getting caught up in the thoughts of why you can't do something, you know, and instead of the thought, why can't I do this? There's nothing that can stand in between what it is you want and where you want to go if you remove the self-limiting thought.
Mr. Robert L. Duncan, I thank you so much for being on the show, and I like that. Most people say fear, false evidence appearing real, but you said remove the limitations. I like that. Remove the limitations. I always tell people, even if it's just you only have one client. At least you tried and you started something, right? And you have been amazing tonight. A scholar, a gentleman, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you,
I talked to the Honorable R. Wesley Webb to find a way so we can break some bread together here in the near future, have some lunch or some dinner. Sure. It's been an honor. I've learned a lot. And give us that website one more time before we say goodnight. I
actually made a mistake when I did the website because we were talking about the foundation. I gave them my latest marketing piece on the foundation. So, but I want to give you the Bachelor-Benedict Club website, which is where I would like to direct people as well. And that's at www.bachelor-benedict.org.
Okay.
And the other address was for the foundation, and that was for our latest scholarship outreach piece, and where you'll be able to go when we do some other development. And that's the one that's Sash, one word, .net.
Okay, got that one there. And you also said www.bachelor-benedict.org.
That's correct.
All right, we got those out, and I'll make sure I disseminate those out to my social media platform so people can learn more about the organization,
sure,
make donations, try to be a member. And hey, this has been great. I want to thank you so much for your knowledge tonight, your expertise,
You're welcome.
all the things that you've given back to African Americans, and even beyond. You know, when you talked about the young, middle-aged Caucasian white man that was just in tears, and he just saw what I call. I got a book back here. Let me just take this book. I don't want these up. Let me tell you what he saw. He saw you doing this. He saw you operating in excellence. That's what he was like, man, you know. So keep up the great work. Mr. Duncan, let's break some bread together. I'll talk with you offline with Brother Wesley Webb. Shout out to your entire organization. Y'all keep doing a wonderful job, and I'm pretty sure I'll be out there to support you in one of your events very soon.
All right. Dr. White, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.